Welcome to Founders Future, a podcast powered by Closers.io, where we dive into the journeys of innovative entrepreneurs and explore the road ahead for them and their companies. I'm your host, Jae Encarnacion, and in each episode, we uncover the stories behind impactful ventures, the challenges faced along the way, and the strategies driving their future growth. Today, we are thrilled to have Mike Moyer, the founder of Slicing Pie. Mike is a serial entrepreneur, author, and educator with a unique blend of experience starting companies like Capex.com and teaching entrepreneurship at Northwestern University and the University of Chicago Booth School of Business. Based in Lake Forest, Illinois, Slicing Pie, founded in 2010, is revolutionizing how early-stage startups allocate equity fairly through its dynamic equity model. We'll explore his founding story, how Slicing Pie empowers founders to avoid equity disputes, and his vision for scaling this game-changing venture. So with that being said, let's dive right in. Mike, welcome to Founders Future.
Thank you for having me. Nice to be here.
An absolute pleasure. So we'd really love to start at the top. What you're doing is very niche and an incredible business model here. So we'd love for you to take us back to the beginning. What specific problem, Mike, in the startup equity landscape really inspired you to create Slicing Pie?
I've been an entrepreneur most of my life. I started when I was a kid, like many entrepreneurs. And I first came across this problem when I started a business at University of Chicago. And I wanted to bring on partners, technical partners, marketing partners, and they wanted to share the company. And I asked my professors and I talked to lawyers and advisors, and they all gave me the same explanation, which was project what your financials are going to be, what each person is going to bring to the table, what they're going to do, all these future forward-thinking statements that I couldn't, for the life of me, figure out. And I was struck with fear about giving too much away. And after that kind of crashed and burned, I wound up giving 25% of my business away to one person, and that person flaked out. Then I started another company, and I gave away 25%, that person flaked out. Then I gave away 75%, and that person did the job, but it was so easy that I'd given away 75% of my business when I had all the work to do. And then I started another company, and I signed some bad equity deals and wound up leaving the company and losing my equity. And it's just every time I did it, it was a mess. And as I talked to people, I found out that I wasn't the only one who had this kind of problem. This equity discussion, which is the first deal people do with their co-founders, is always a mess. And about 15 years ago, I set out to solve this problem once and for all, using the logic of how fairness works in our world.
Amazing. So with that there, I would definitely love to understand the evolution, right? Being that you started it in 2010, how has it evolved, especially around your offer and what you're providing and who you're serving? How's it evolved to today, Mike?
Back in the early 2008, 2009, 2007, I put together what I thought was going to be a hacker's guide to equity splits. And the basic premise is that when you contribute to a startup and you're not paid, you're effectively making a bet on the future outcome of the company. And the value of your bet is exactly equal to the fair market value of your contribution. So if you buy a plane ticket and you're not reimbursed, you're betting the price of that plane ticket. You're not betting more than the price of that plane ticket because you're not a magical leprechaun. You're not betting less than the value of that plane ticket. You're betting exactly the value of that plane ticket. If you're worth $50 an hour and I don't pay you $50 an hour, then every hour you work, you're betting exactly $50 an hour on unpaid salary. So logically, your share of the ownership of the rewards of the company in terms of profits or proceeds of a sale should be based on your share of the bets. So if you make 25% of the bets and I make 75% of the bets, you should have 25% of the winnings and I should have 75% of the winnings. So our share of the ownership is based on our share of the bets. And what I realized, how it evolved over the years, is that it got less and less flexible in terms of the decision making. So for instance, cash and non-cash are different things. If you buy something for $100, it costs $100. But if I pay you $100 an hour, it'll take you more than an hour to earn enough money. Because when I pay you, I pay employment taxes and Social Security taxes and You receive the money, you pay income tax, then you pay tariffs and sales tax. So the buying power of what you earn is diminished by the time you actually have the cash. So I have to apply a multiplier to that to make it work. So those multipliers and that math doesn't change. It works the same way for any startup in the world. So it's no longer kind of a hacker's guide. It's more of an absolute truth about what's fair and what's not. So any company can apply this, the model, and it always works.
Gotcha. Incredible. So what I definitely want to get into the nuts and bolts here for our listeners, Mike, because what you're doing is pretty incredible, very niche in the space, and clearly needed for startups and businesses alike to effectively have this equity sharing and splitting. So walk us through really how you're generating revenue today. Like, what is the core offer? Who do you really love to work with as far as your ideal client? And how is all of your offerings structured for your clients when they come and work with you?
Well, my ideal client is a startup company with founders. So it could be a farm in Kansas, it could be a tech company in India, it could be a travel agency in Korea. Any company that's starting with founders is my target audience. And the model is described on my website and in my videos, and it's free for people to use. People don't need my permission to be fair. They don't need to pay me to be fair. So my business model is the product is basically free. And if you want more information about it and to learn more about how it works, you can buy books. I sell books. I sell consulting. I sell software as a service where you can track your split. I have legal relationships with lawyers all over the world. So the questions people have are, how do I account for the fair market value of my idea, for instance? Or how do I reward a salesperson? How to pay an advisor? Or how do I make this a legal contract? There's questions people have around doing this that I make money off of. But being fair and teaching how to be fair is free for founders to use.
Gotcha. So what would you point to as for you, as you just mentioned, what is the core, what's the bread and butter of what you're doing? What do you really focus? Is it going to be on that consulting side that you spend a lot of your attention because the rest of your material is on that website? They can utilize it, the books, the SaaS products. So are you focusing a lot of your attention on that consulting piece?
Well, the SaaS is my main product, but all my revenue streams are similar in value. One of the problems with targeting the startup community is they don't have a lot of cash, which is why they use equity splits in the first place. If they had plenty of cash, they'd just pay everybody and they wouldn't use equity. That's what I do in my businesses. I have a number of businesses. I have people who work for me. I just pay them a salary and I don't give them equity because they're getting paid in full. So it's hard for me to charge a lot of money and make a lot of money off this market, but I do it because I love it and I think it's a serious advantage for startup companies and it's my give back to the world.
Incredible. So on that front, Mike, what are you seeing right now, being that it is a tougher market to work with because of the financial status of a lot of the startups and where it is and how tough it is? How are you acquiring customers effectively and consistently? What's working best with those channels, whether it is social media or running ads successfully or referrals from your past successes? What does that look like as far as what you're seeing work best there?
Probably the most success I've had is doing partnerships and doing webinars and podcasts like this to get the word out. I've done a little bit of online advertising, which has been a struggle to convert. I've done SEO, which works fairly well. There's a lot of noise in this market, and the noise comes from established accelerators and incubator companies and people who teach entrepreneurship. There's a conventional wisdom around this. And the conventional wisdom is basically you and I are going to go into business together, so we should split it 50-50. And that's just easy, and we'll go from there because we're gonna work hard. But that never works because it assumes that you and I are going to do exactly the same amount of work, make this exactly the same contribution, which is never true. So I have to overcome the existing wisdom, conventional wisdom in the market, which is difficult to do.
Absolutely. So doing a couple of different things on that side to get that consistent acquisition and leads coming in on that front. Are you, as far as the sales process goes, Mike, is this something that you're running with a team behind you? Do you have a sales team, marketing team, assistants, or is this a lot of this done on your own?
I do have a staff and I have a marketing guy that helps generate leads. He does social media and SEO. And I do most of my outreach, personal outreach to come speaking events, things like that.
Amazing. So small but nimble team. You have a marketing guy and a bit around that to help bring those leads in, and then you're running a lot of it on the sales side to actually get those across and work with those clients of yours?
The price point is small enough that I can't support a very elaborate sales process. So it's got to be someone who's learned about it and is curious about it. And I try to price things low enough that people will be comfortable making a decision online. So it's not a multi-step process unless I'm securing a speaking event, for instance.
Beautiful. Beautiful. So on that front, then, with the process you have, obviously you've been at this for about 15 years now, Mike. So you have your system is down. What would you point to today as a bottleneck that you're thinking about to growth and to scaling this company, whether it be the lead generation side or converting those clients, scaling on the fulfillment side of things? What are you thinking about on the bottleneck on that front?
The market has changed fairly dramatically in the past 15 years.
Yeah.
What worked 15 years ago doesn't work as well today. And it's a function of overcrowding and there's AI issues. Like I used to be able to write articles for Wall Street Journal and TechCrunch and big sites like that, and I'd be able to guest post for them or write for them, and that would drive a lot of traffic. SEO used to be a lot more effective. The number of competitors that I've had, there's no direct competitor to Simplified. Simplified is a unique tool, but there are a plethora of cap table management softwares out there, like Carta, for instance, which is a very popular one that I use myself for some of my investments, that cloud them, muddy the waters. So they're doing the same search terms. So it's gotten harder over the years to make a difference. That's why personal outreach has been more and more important, and doing webinars and live events. I was in New Orleans last week, did a live event, and that's what I've spent more of my time on lately. And social media has become less effective. SEO has become less effective. I have found some success in Google AI generated ads, where my conversion rate has gone way down.
Interesting.
So I use my lead generation was several dollars when I did it years ago, which was unsustainable, to now it's 8 cents for converted users, which is much easier to handle. That's been a big plus. So some things have become easier, some things have become harder, but the AI tools for advertising have been really useful.
Amazing. Amazing. On that front, where are you as far as this scaling this goes? Where are you mentally with what needs to be continuously done and implemented, especially for our listeners who are in a similar niche and are having a harder time with scaling something of this nature, especially as you said, with the market always changing? How are you approaching that and continuously to grow and scale Slicing Pie?
Well, my focus is more and more on good SEO and hitting the fundamentals of SEO. I don't like doing SEO. I think it's boring.
Yeah.
I think it's tedious. But getting the fundamentals right, getting the on-page SEO fundamentals is pretty important, because people that are competing with me do get it right. And with AI tools, there's no reason for you not to get it right. So I focus on the fundamentals of on-page SEO, tags and meta descriptions and keywords properly, targeting keywords properly, so that I'm not trying to go after the big, most competitive words, and I can look at niche words and can go after those. And then steady discipline around building links going in, which is sometimes the hardest part.
Amazing. Just focusing on kind of that back end piece that's going to bring more traction to the site, get that continuously building and growing. So walk us through, Mike, what is the vision for the rest of 2025 going into 2026, being that you really want to continue to grow and scale Slicing Pie? What are you laser focused on for the rest of this year, going into next year, to continue that growth and scale as you're picturing it in your mind?
Well, Slicing Pie is one of several things that I do. So I wish I could laser focus on, but I'm a typical ADHD entrepreneur.
Yeah.
So besides SEO, I work on partnerships across the world. I'm working with a company in Malaysia right now. I'm working with a company in Barcelona to bring Slicing Pie local to people. So in addition to basic SEO, my outreach is localizing Slicing Pie. Different countries have different rules and laws around how equity can be allocated and consumed by startups, and sometimes they're pretty convoluted. So you need local lawyers to work with the local companies, and I need to localize the content. Translation is pretty easy to do right now, but it doesn't always capture the nuance. I work with the local translators and business people to bring to different markets.
Amazing. If you, hypothetically speaking, Mike, We're able to access unlimited resources right now at a snap of a finger. What do you think is something that you would be implementing immediately into Slicing Pie for that growth and that scale?
It's an interesting question. I've had unlimited resources, and I guess I would do outreach, proactive outreach to startup companies, incubators, and try to network into those incubators because they have the lion's share of the market. That's people kind of gravitate towards incubators and college education departments. I'd do more outreach to them. Yeah, I'm not always good at. I'm not always effective at doing that. I don't know what it's been, why, but I'm not always effective at reaching the places.
Very interesting. I love that. And so overall, being that you've been in the space, and I mean, you've been in it for longer than the 15 years that you've had the company, obviously from even before 2007, 2008, as you were mentioning, where do you see it from today moving forward as far as the startup equity landscape as a whole? How do you see that evolution in the coming years, especially with your dynamic model and how you're operating Slicing Pie? What are you doing to keep Slicing Pie at the forefront of that evolution that you're picturing?
I'm always trying to keep it at the forefront. I believe that every startup in the world could use this model to safely to drive ownership. Every startup in the world changes their mind about equity. If startups go in 50-50, they're going to change it. All equity models change over time. Slicing Pie simply gives you the logic to make the right decisions to make those changes. So my challenge is constantly educating the world on how this works. I saw a video the other day from a very prominent, respected, I respect them, incubator program who recommends 50-50 splits. And they're teaching their market. Again, they have a lot of traction and not a lot of viewers. And they're teaching their market to do the opposite of what actually works. And they do it because they don't understand Slicing Pie. As I watched the video, I could tell he didn't understand. I could tell that he was aware of Slicing Pie, but it was clear to me that he was not clear of how it worked. For instance, he said that you want to do a 50-50 split because the work is in front of you, which is true. The work is all in front of you, but 50-50 does not necessarily reflect that because it's not adjustable. Slicing Pie is solely focused on the future because it's the only model that adapts as the future becomes reality. So that lack of understanding is what is a barrier that I have to overcome. So I'm hoping that I'll hit an inflection point and it'll take on a life of its own. And it has to a certain extent, but it's me constantly beating the bush to make it happen.
Absolutely. It's just incredible what you're doing so far here, Mike, and what you're able to affect with these startups and take them to that next level with Slicing Pie. So I want to take this lightning round here for our listeners just to get a bit more before we wrap up the show here. The first question I have for you on this front is going to be more on the tool or resource side of things, whether it's an insight from your teaching or strategy from your entrepreneurial ventures or an AI tool that you're utilizing. What's really been a game changer this far for Slicing Pie?
AI for SEO has been a big plus. The site that I recently worked with is a nice tool. Let's see if I can figure it out. It's called clickrank.ai. And clickrank.ai will go in and optimize your meta tags and your keywords and your links and your images with a click. And that's why I say there's no excuse not to keep things done right on fundamentals of SEO because the tools are available. So that's one tool that I recently started using that's been coming handy. I got on AppSumo. You know AppSumo?
Yes. Yep.
Yeah, I got on AppSumo. I get a lot of stuff on AppSumo. I bought many things over the years on AppSumo. It's one of my go-to resources. I've bought probably 10 times many things I actually use. Some of them work out, turn out to be duds, some of them work out to be real gems.
Yeah. Incredible. Absolutely incredible. So with that, I would love to hear from you on this side here of advice. Mike, what is the best piece of advice that you've personally received about scaling a mission-driven business? I know that you've been through so many ups and downs in the business space. What's the best piece of advice that you've heard throughout your journey?
The best piece of advice, the one that I tell my students and I tell people who come to me advice, is to work the market first. Get the market before you build a product, before you build any technology. Build your basic website and create content and make sure you can attract the market first. Because if you can't attract the market first, who cares how good your technology is? Who cares how good your idea is? You have to attract the market first. Slicing Pie was initially just a blog, and then it was a white paper, and then it was a simple book, and then I evolved the book over time. And by enough people read the book and were asking for the software, it wasn't until 5 years into the business that I launched the software. If I launched the software without the market, I would have been just wasting my time. And I see startups, tech startups especially, create products and not have any access to the market, so they fall flat. And I have products that I've started that I was so excited about the product. I spent money on the product and developing the product, and it didn't sell. I have a ski product that I thought was brilliant, and it is brilliant. And I had my garage full of them because no one bought them because I was unable to reach the skier market in the way that I wanted to. When I was able to show, I did at trade shows when the market existed, and I showed people, at least 75% of people who saw it bought it and loved it because they thought it was great. But I've been unable to effectively reach that market online, so my product doesn't sell because I can't reach the market. So if anyone wants to buy a ski company, I got it. So it's get the market first, and make sure you can market first.
Absolutely. Incredible. And then last but certainly not least here, Mike, is going to be, what is a piece of advice that you can offer to our listeners tuning in right now? Either other founders, startup founders in the middle of their business. What can you give them before we wrap up the show today?
So when you do your equity deal with your co-founders and you talk to advisors and lawyers and well-meaning, experienced, successful people, and they tell you to split it X, Y%, whenever you express your split as a percentage, you have done what's called a fixed equity split, which means you fix the equity split and you have to renegotiate it later. And it leaves out a lot of important things. The future is unknowable. You can't tell the future. Things are going to change. Things aren't going to go the way you want. Some things are going to go better. Some things are going to go worse. And because you can't tell the future, you need a dynamic program that matches how the future unrolls. Slicing pie will give you the right answer to your equity split problem. Whether you bring on 1 founder or 10 founders, it'll always make sure that you have exactly what you deserve. So please take a moment to learn how slicing pie works. And if you don't use slicing pie, recognize and embrace the fact that you're going to run into a conflict someday. In the 10 years or 15 years I've been doing this, thousands of people have used slicing pie all over the world. Never once have I heard of a company failing because they use slicing pie. Never once have I heard it backfiring. Never once have I heard someone be able to game it or break it. It always works as it's described in the books. And I've heard all kinds of stories about companies not working out because you use a fixed split. So my advice to all founders is use a dynamic model, which is slicing pie for equity splits.
Amazing. With that right there, ladies and gentlemen, that is going to wrap up another inspiring episode of Founders Future. Mike, just want to thank you again coming on the show, sharing that incredible journey that you've been on and your insights. And again, clear as day with the passion that you have and the drive, why you've seen the success that you've seen and why you will continue to see that. So truly it was an honor and a pleasure to have you on the show today, Mike. And to our listeners, if you enjoyed this episode, which I know so many of you have, don't forget to subscribe to Founders Future wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. You can also check out Slicing Pie at slicingpie.com for their free startup equity calculator, and follow Mike on LinkedIn at linkedin.com/in/Mike Moyer. And for more resources and insights, you can visit us here at closer.io, where we are dedicated to helping businesses accelerate their growth through trained appointment setters and world-class marketing systems. Until then, keep climbing, and we will see you on the next one.